So good evening, everyone. We are really glad to have Mr. Raian Karanjawala here with us in an interview with Business World. We're going to talk about his career so far. We're going to talk about the milestones of Karanjawala. We're going to talk about the impact of coronavirus on current litigation scenario. We'll be starting with the first question, where we would want to know and we would want to ask Mr. Karanjawala that he was, before joining law, he was studying at Sri Ram College of Commerce in the year of 1972. And after which you decided to join law, and you wanted to pursue your career as a lawyer. So why did you decide to move from SRCC to pursuing law?
I'll tell you. First, should I spend just a little time on my years in Sri Ram College? The reason is that I feel, in my view, that's when Raian Karanjawala really became Raian Karanjawala. And the reason why I say it is this: that I was a byproduct of St. Columbus School, and Columbus School in those days, I don't know what it is like today, but the byproduct of that school in those days, we were a little nerdy, a little self-conscious, a little tentative, unlike the modern school product, who was always full of confidence and, pushing ahead in many things. And I remember years ago, Justice Yogeshwar Dayal once brought my attention to this. He said, "ये जो modern school के लड़के हैं ना," his own son was in modern school, "ये जो modern school के लड़के हैं ना, वो हमेशा बहुत confident रहते हैं." So till I joined Sri Ram College, I was like most of the byproducts of Columbus, a little tentative, okay in studies, a few friends here, a few friends there, but nothing too much. Then when I joined Commerce College in 72, several things happened. And one of them was that I met Arun Jaitly. He was contesting for college union president at that time. And we became very close friends. And Arun brought me into two things. One is, with him, I began to debate for the college debating team. And years after Arun left, I captained Commerce College. Years later, I captained government law. And the other thing he brought me into was student politics. And that, I think, was a little bit of a change in my life, because in the second year of college, I contested for Supreme Councillor. In my last year, I was a college union president. Had Mrs. Gandhi not declared emergency, I would have probably been ABVP's candidate for DUSU. At least that's what people feel. So the one thing that happens to you when you get into student politics is that you go out there and start interacting with a lot of people. And that makes a lot of difference in your life. So from a person who had a limited circle of friends. So Sri Ram College was not only about the people I met over there, like Arun, Vijay Goel, Rajat Sharma, Rohinton Nariman, to name Justice Sikri, to name just a few. It was more about suddenly the transformation in character by which, from a somewhat diffident person, you become outgoing, you go out there and meet a lot of people, you interact with a lot of people, and your social circle just increases tremendously. So that's what Commerce College did to me, and I think that is something that has always stood me in good stead over the years. Now, to the real question that you asked, which is, why did I join law?
Why did you join law? Yes.
Yeah, well, frankly, when I was in Commerce College, my first two choices were MBA or Chartered Accountancy, which was what normally people from Commerce College in those days did. Law was not the sought after profession. Arun went into it because his father was a lawyer, but unless your dad was a lawyer, you really didn't join law. But I got a third division. I got 1 mark less than 50%. And I think that was the real turning point in my life, because I don't know, but I think I can say with a certain amount of frankness that if I had been a chartered accountant or I'd been an MBA, I don't think I would have been anywhere near as blessed or successful as I am today. Frankly, the law has been so kind to me that I don't think any other profession would have given me as much as that has. And the other advantage, it was a disadvantage at that time. The thing was that particular year, law faculty said that you're not eligible to enter law unless you have a minimum 50%. So there went law faculty also, which left me with a quandary as to what will I do now, where will I go? And then, Rohinton Nariman, I mentioned, was a friend of mine. I went to his father, Fali Nariman, and Fali put in a word with the principal of the college. And even more than Fali, his wife, Pepsi, put in a word with a professor called Rafiq Dada, who's a well-known counsel. I said, look, Rohinton, very good friend Ryan, you must get him admission in government law. And because of my extracurricular, I got admission in government law college. And that also was a turning point in my life, because Bombay at that time was two things. It was, and probably still is, the financial capital of India. But at that time, it was also the legal capital of India. It no longer is. Today, Delhi is. But in those days, the Bombay High Court and the Bombay Solicitors Practice was the abiding practice of law. And these were now 76, 77, 78. I'm talking about those years. So that's how I ended up getting into government law college.
Okay. Can you talk to us a little bit about how was your experience to study in Bombay in the late 1970s and be
Fantastic.
a student of law here? Yes.
It was fantastic because, see, first you must remember that there was a great difference in the atmosphere in Delhi and Bombay in those days. We're now talking about 76, 77, then it changed. So the years 76, 77 were the emergency years. And Delhi was a place full of fear. Bombay wasn't. It was very bindas. I still remember as a young man going and hearing a speech at St. Xavier's College where Soli Sorabji spoke. And he talked about, people used to talk about discipline in the sense that now trains are running on time, so emergency is a good thing. And he talked about a larger discipline. Very frankly, very bluntly, lambasted the government, totally unafraid. It was a completely different atmosphere prevailing in Delhi. So the first thing that you got when you went to Bombay at that time, because it was a peculiar years, was a sense of freedom.
Freedom.
You just felt that, oh, it's fine, it's fine. It's like it always was. That was the first thing. Secondly, I met, as it always happens when you're out of town, you seek out people from the same town. So I met two of my closest friends, both of whom were from Delhi. One was Anif Sadde and the other was Mukul Rothki. Mukul and I became close friends in government law. And we were sort of the three musketeers. We used to hang together, we used to study together, we used to go out together. And government law was one of the most enjoyable periods of my life, along with the first year in Commerce College. It was just
around that time. Did you also have an experience of maybe working or understanding how the Bombay High Court was working?
So I'll tell you, not while I was studying, but prior to my studying, I spent 4 months in Bombay. And at that time, I did an internship with a firm called Nanavati Tijoriwala. Madhubai Tijoriwala was the head of the firm. When I last spoke to him, it was about 6 months ago. At the age of 100, he was still around. And so I was very lucky that I used to follow Justice Tuljapurkar's younger son, Virag Tuljapurkar, when he used to go to court. I was, of course, I hadn't even become a law student. So I would just tag along with him. So I saw the best of the Bombay bar at that time. Soli was there. Fali had already shifted to Delhi. Soli was still there. You saw Soli, you saw Anil Diwan, you saw Ashok Desai, you saw Nani Palkhiwala, you saw Khatu Cooper, you saw Rustam Kola. I saw Justice Bharucha as a young man practicing before he even was designated as a senior advocate. So, you saw Bombay Bar, you saw its culture, you saw its way of working. It was an experience that remains in your mind. And Bombay Bar at that time was the bar. It was a stellar bar. There was a man like J.C. Bhatt. There were a lot of brilliant people around. And you interacted with them. I mean, you interacted at the level of a novice legal, just a gopher. But nevertheless, it's something that you pick up and something that you remember.
Ryan, yeah, go ahead.
Please?
That was your formative years in some way. Though. Now, while Anisha will come to legal, you are known to be the advisor to the rich and powerful and famous, and your firm is the #1 litigation firm in the country. Not just that it does litigation only, but it is the #1 litigation firm.
Now, actually, it does litigation only. We only do litigation.
Yeah. Okay. I stand corrected. So we are in COVID times, which is very VUCA. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and we don't know when it will end. So when you talk to your clients, you talk to your peers, you talk to your friends, but also your client, whether they are entrepreneurs, industrialists, politicians, media owners, what is the sense you get? What are they thinking in terms of dealing with COVID? How do they see the future? What are they doing to deal with it?
I'll explain to you. See, the first thing to remember is because it's so quick and so sudden, everyone is coping with a sense of uncertainty. See, nobody has definitive answers. Secondly, everyone is living in a time when bad news is accentuated and put out there. So if the economy is collapsing, it's collapsing like a nosedive. Crash, 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 you know. So everyone is sort of hunkering down, getting into a bunker. People are talking about, yeah, I think I'll be able to survive. Not the COVID. Economically, I'll be able to survive, but you know, there's this problem, that problem. Obviously, times are going to be tough. And obviously, this isn't going to help. But, and the Indian economy was sort of slowing down anyway. But at the moment, let's put it this way. For the last 2, 3, 4 years, if you talk to the Indian, what you got is pessimism. Now there's sort of a pessimism combined with fear, combined with panic. That's the sense I get. You know,
pessimism combined with fear, combined with panic.
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure that when you people talk, you're not exactly getting a completely different picture from the one I get.
You're absolutely.
You know, so there is this sense that, oh my God, what's going to happen here? I mean, I'll have to cut this, I'll have to cut that. I mean, you know, people are already talking in terms of, let's cut our expenses. Then you forget this, forget that, forget this, forget that. So let's say conspicuous spending. I think unless they miraculously find a vaccine in the next 3 months and then everyone gets back to it, I think conspicuous spending is going to end. People also, the other thing to remember is that while people have been sitting at home, and most of the people have only been sitting at home, they've had a lot of time to ponder over what went through their years what went through them in the last several years. And everyone is talking in terms of, okay, what change or shift can I do with my life? And usually it's a matter of pruning things down. Let's avoid this. Okay. You know, as a head of an organization, I have to constantly think, okay, what do we have to do to stay afloat? What do we have to do to survive? How do we manage to keep the ship on board? How do we manage to keep people in play and so on? So everyone is busy with that. And generally, I think the mood is, I mean, I don't
somber.
think I'll be scared. Yeah, somber and a bit dismal.
Okay. Now, you know, you alluded to the fact that, you know, you're also thinking about how a large firm, a very large firm, very eminent and very sought after. Now, what does it take to build a large law firm? Is there a playbook that you used, or we can say, is there a playbook to build a large law firm? Is there a playbook?
Well, you have to get lucky. That's all I can say. You just have to get lucky.
That is true for every.
Because I can say one thing about my life. People far harder working and far more intelligent and far more deserving are doing far less well. So you just have to get lucky. But of course, there are many things that you can do. And in the course of the interview, I'll sort of come around to how lawyers should interact, how lawyers should tackle things, how things grow. But yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is.
As they say, luck favors the brave. Luck favors the brave. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yes, but not always. A lot of people work very hard and don't get that lucky. So, you know, you have to do things right. And you just have to be in the right place. As they say, if you were born in America, then you won half the battle because you were born in America. So, like, if you were born in Delhi, then you have a huge inbuilt advantage on the litigative front because you're born in the litigative capital of India. Now, if you're going to practice law in some remote area of Bihar, then no matter how clever you are, no matter how many cases you read, you're really not going to get the top line clients because you're just not in that geography. So the first thing you have to do is to go to the place where what they call Marlboro country. You have to go to where the action is.
Good. Now, litigation, fortunately, in the last 4 weeks, even in this economic slowdown, in this COVID atmosphere, law firms have been busy making more partners, giving bonuses, increasing salaries. So clearly, law firms and law firm founders.
Who said? Where do you get that from?
No, I mean, Anisha and Abhinav, which law firms? I mean,
what happens is this time of the year, the law firm that give bonuses have to give the bonus on the basis of the last year's performance because 31st March is up, right?
Sure.
So that was something that was in the past. It was due. Like, it's like a salary.
Sure. It is
due. Yeah. So what they have basically done is just gone through the results of the last year and on the basis of that come to the assessment they would have come to and acted on it. But I mean, the test will be whether 6 months down the road, supposing 6 months down the road they had to give bonuses, would they still be in a position to is the question?
Sure. So the question I was leading to was that clearly a lot of experts, whether it's CEOs, promoters, even your legal peers, feel that the next 6 to 12 months, 18 months will be a golden period for law firms in the sense that litigation will go up. No. Whether it's between vendors.
Okay, let me deal with that. No, I've spoken to
government
I've spoken to several partners, including the partners of the big firms, the biggest firms in India. Mine is a small firm compared to them. But now, first of all, look at there are two kinds of firms. So look at the full service firm. Now, I spoke to somebody and I won't give the name, but she's a top partner. And I said, okay, what were your 3 top practice areas? So number 1, M&A, which they expect to whittle down largely because there's not going to be much M&A transaction. Number 2, restructuring, which could go up a little bit. Number 3, litigation, which again, it may not go up or it'll probably hold. But frankly, we have to wait and see. People always say that, "Arey, vakilon ki to aish hai, they're going to really mint money."
No.
It doesn't happen. Good times are best for everybody. So in bad times, litigating lawyers probably we will certainly, hopefully feel the pinch much less than an M&A transaction lawyer. Because our work, once the courts open, but look at it this way, if the courts don't open for a long time, then there's nothing we can do about it. And you may say, oh, but there's a video conference, but that's for very limited, very on the spot, for the moment kind of matters. You can't really substitute video conferencing on a permanent basis for the way things are being handled in courts. It just doesn't happen.
So, Ryan, just to stay on this, when you and me were having this conversation last week, you even suggested a method for courts to open so that the backlog doesn't add up and the business of courts continues as usual, keeping the safety and security of justices, of people who represent the litigants, as in the professionals who are your peers. So give us a solution for how the judicial system, the courts, could go on and keep functioning. Is there a solution that you'd like to propose?
First, let's understand what is the system in play at the moment. The system in play at the moment is that if you have an urgent matter, which fits the format of what the court says is urgent, then you can, in certain circumstances, come on a video link. But as you see in a video conference, it is best for a 2-way dialogue. It's not so good in a 3-way dialogue. For example, for an ex parte matter, where the lawyer speaks and the judge speaks and nobody else interrupts from the side, a video conferencing might work. Where there is another side and there's this side, it becomes more of a jangle. And also, video conferencing, people are somewhat intimidated. People are not able to get in the arguments to the length to which they want. Judges may have a sort of a question, but they don't want to say it because they're on video and now it'll take some time. Sometimes the links are not so good. So there are a whole host of problems with video conferencing.
It becomes more of a news hour debate, Arnab's news hour debate.
Well, I don't know, it's an Arunab news hour debate, but it may become more of a news hour debate. So the point is that certainly video conferencing is something that is good for the moment. But whether it's something we can permanently keep, I don't know. So the question that is there is now, supposing it opens up, how do you have a situation where there are two things people are worried about? One is that everybody at the bar is also concerned with the safety of the judge. Because one doesn't want to pass on an infection from the bar to the bench. How do you guard against that? Well, one way, and I've been sort of asking around, you can get something called a polycarbonate transparent sheet or a perspex transparent sheet, which is just a sheet of plastic, totally transparent, which you hang from the wall to the floor. And that blocks out anything going between the judge and this thing. You have mics on this side, you have mics on that side. So it's like a glass sheet, except that it's much more flexible than a glass sheet. And therefore, it prevents the judge getting any infection from the bar. That's one. Two, obviously, you will have a system by which people will be allowed into a courtroom only when their matter is about to reach or when they're just one matter away, so that the courtroom, the congestion in the courtroom is reduced. The third thing that comes about is, but what about the congestion in court? Because today, if you go into the Delhi High Court, you will find that it is completely packed. Now, it was a thought I had, which I shared with a few people, and some of them felt it would be practical, which is that, for example, in the summer, the Rajasthan High Court used to work from 7 to 10. That's it, in the morning, because they used to take that particular shift because it was most convenient for people, keeping what the weather was in mind. Now, there's no reason why a High Court of Delhi, for example, can't work in two shifts. One shift from 9 to say 1:30, the other shift from say 2 to 6:30, or whatever the numbers of hours are. And the court is divided into the judges. Half the judges come in the morning shift, half the judges come in the evening shift. They do their board. But then what happens is that at least the congestion outside is automatically virtually halved by 45%. Have I made myself clear in what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It is halved by 45%. And also, you discourage the litigant from coming in large numbers, or you try to find a way by which he can observe it from a observatory via video in another room or something like that, or you just discourage too many litigants from coming and you just cut down the congestion. But one thing you can do by having the High Court shift is to just straight away cut down half the congestion. So, I mean, if this continues to prevail, these are things that people will have to think of. You'll have to think of a sheet by which the judges don't constantly get infection from the bar. So you just this thing. And evolve ways and more ways to sort of deal with the problem. That's what I feel.
Okay. Anisha? Abhinav?
Mr. Karanjawala, you have, this is slightly off track, but do you have any opinions on FDI in law? I mean, will it get delayed and how will it impact law firms? Because most of the prominent lawyers we speak to, they feel that there's a dearth of talented lawyers in the country and FDI can change that.
Abhinav, I don't
FDI
agree with you that.
Huh?
So,
FDI meaning
No, I'm not.
Foreign law firms being allowed.
Yeah, foreign law firms being allowed.
Going
Yes.
on for 20 years, I've been hearing that debate.
Look, I remember I appeared for one of the foreign law firms many years ago, somewhere in 1990, White and Case, when this case had first started. And we were almost lynched as we walked out of court. And there was a huge amount of hostility. Now, that was 1990. We're today in, 2020. So that's 30 years, and they still haven't come in.
And so I would just like to correct myself. I would just like to correct myself. By dearth, I didn't mean dearth of talent within the country, but most of the talented lawyers go out of the country. There's a lot of brain drain happening. So yeah, from that perspective.
Look, in fundamental terms, why does everyone oppose it? I mean, I remember Henry Kravis once had a conversation. Henry Kravis of KKR once had a conversation with me, and he said, so we were in Anurjit Singh's house, and he said, so what is your view on that? What do you think of foreign law firms? And he thought, obviously the place I was in, I might be pro-foreign law firms. So I said, I'm against it. So he said, why? I said, because if you have a monopoly, why lose it? So, I mean, simple as that. Everyone just protects their own turf. I mean, why would I not protect my own turf? I mean, finally, after many long years, the legal profession is doing well in India financially. Why would Indian lawyers suddenly want to open up and give everybody abroad a chance? And look, on a more serious note, forget protecting your own turf. You just can't compete with them because you just cannot handle the kind of capital that they can bring to bear. There are 1,000 lawyer firms. I mean, they can just come in, invest, undercut you, finish you off, and then just take the cream away. I mean, it is just so difficult to compete against them that you won't realize it till you actually start doing it. So, I mean, as long as they're not there, it's fine.
And one more thing,
exactly.
And they're not reciprocal. They don't let us, our law firms.
Yeah, they're not exactly opening up arms for you. And even if they do, in a city like London, it's a closed door club. I mean, you know, one of our top counsels has gone there, and we all know Salve's over there. And I mean, even a man of his merit wasn't instantly accepted. His QC came many, many long years after he had become designated as a senior in India. And he was handling the top cases of the Supreme Court in India, but they didn't automatically make him a QC. They took their time about it because that's how they are. So don't get fooled and feel that no. It'll all be honky-dory. No, it won't.
So in the next 5-10 years, you don't see foreign law firms being allowed to practice in India?
I don't have a clear idea, and I don't have a clear view. But I've been hearing they're coming in next year. They're coming in next year for the last 30 years.
20 years I've been in. I mean,
अगले साल आ रहे हैं. इसने ये किया, उसने वो किया. They've talked to Bhardwaj. They've done this. They've done that. This is not here.
Anisha.
Yeah, so just taking it over from there. So how do you think the current situation can impact the future of litigation from here? Like, do you think it's going to have impacts that would be lasting on the future? Like, are there like aspects of infrastructure?
Early to say. I'll tell you. Early to say. It depends on how quickly this threat vanishes. If this threat lingers on in some form or the other for a year and a half, then slowly some practices will start evolving. Like, for example, as a firm, one of the things I'm thinking of is, in the beginning, at least for the first 2 months, I'm thinking of telling my partners to break each team into 2 parts. Now, I'm fortunate that my office in Delhi is housed in 3 separate buildings. So if one person gets it, the whole that office may get quarantined, but the other 2 buildings will be able to survive. There are firms which have everyone housed in one building. So one guy gets it, that whole firm is quarantined for 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or whatever they quarantine you for. Second, we're thinking of evolving a practice by which each partner breaks his team into half. And one comes in on one day and the other comes in on the other day, or they come in week by week, or whatever they want to do. They'll work it out. So that if that team person gets it, then all those who worked on the days when that particular team guy worked get quarantined, while the other half are able to continue. So we have to think along those lines. So it all depends on how long it will continue for. Over a period of time, I think, like, for example, Zoom is something that I got introduced to now. I mean, but I'm not that savvy, but I got introduced to it now. And with a little bit of here and there, it works. So, you know, a lot of that is going to happen. You're going to come in on Zoom. You're going to come in out on Zoom. You're going to talk to people. Clients are going to say, "Hey, boss, now I just call you from this thing." And also expense. You see, for example, if flights are A, going to be expensive, and B, going to be risky, then a client in Mumbai will say, "Sir, there are conference call. Conference call, but we will be able to discuss it there only. Koi zarurat nahi hai." Then hotels get expensive. So there will be a change. There will be a turn. But it may not be so much in the way things are argued in court yet, because I feel still that the Indian litigant is used to a touchy-feely kind of litigation. You know, he is used to that situation where he has a day-to-day sense of what is happening in his matter. You know, if you suppose you instead you sort of anticipate it make it more antiseptic and say, all right, on this date you file your pleadings, on this date you file your pleadings, you hand them over to us, we will read, we'll give you a video conference, and we'll hear you for 10 minutes, we'll hear you for 10 minutes, we'll give you a judgment. He just won't get that sense of justice because he won't know whether the points that he wanted to make have been heard, have been digested, and so on. You know, Indian litigants are much more used to a let me see, let me hear, let me understand kind of appreciation of the way litigation is handled. So these are all time. Nobody can sit here and make predictions, aise hoga, vaise hoga, because nobody knows.